the big purses, the big super PACs having several $100 million sitting around, you aren't creative. It doesn't pull out the best in you. It doesn't pull out your best performance. It doesn't pull out the heart. You rely on your resources, just like big companies that rely on the finances. Whereas a young startup, they just have to. It's tenacity and it's determination, and so that's where we're coming from. But I'll tell
Right.
you, I do believe we have a path, even with the data, when it comes to the Hispanic community in America, when it comes to the immigrant community in America, both from Africa, African immigrants, South America immigrants. I do believe that we have a pathway because of our program for legal citizenship and for illegal citizens in the United States, a way to fix that, solutions, which is what we do in business. We solve problems. I mean, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm trying not to just run on a fear-based campaign, but a solution-based campaign.
Right. No, I really appreciate that, and especially your last comment about a fear-based campaign, because I can tell you, you know better than anyone, one thing about American presidential politics and higher level politics is all about fear-mongering, demonizing the other side, bringing down, which I think brings down the entire system.
Yes.
Because it doesn't really, if both are Americans and they generally want good things for America, when you're trying to take pot shots at the other side for whatever reason, you bring all of us down. And it just lessens our position in the world when they see this much public infighting, especially with the big name candidates you see on CNN all the time, right? So again, your message of certainly faith-driven, I respect that, I really value that. I think it's a beautiful thing. Faith-driven is a very big thing that an individual decides to undertake, right? To put yourself out there, your family out there, for criticism, for exposure, because you feel it's the best thing you can do with your life to bring people together.
And there's no retreating from that. Once
Right,
you've done it for the rest of your life, every position that you have for this campaign is permanent record.
right, of course. And in this day and age, it's all
We
digital media, right? So maybe we can turn to your larger, if you have, if you have had a chance to develop a foreign policy platform. Let's focus on the Middle East for a second. What are your thoughts? You're looking at a lot of events happening in the Middle East. There's been exchanges with Saudi Arabia. There's obviously that Gulf business. There's I'm not talking about the Persian Gulf. I'm talking about the Gulf. I guess intrusion of Saudi Arabian money into the PGA. That's interesting. There's other things going on, obviously, with Israel and Palestine, and of course, our favorite topic, Iran. So, in general, what is your perspective of events in the Middle East, and then we'll focus on Iran.
Certainly. Well, I can tell you that the Middle East dynamics, as everyone knows, have been complex for thousands of years. There's no 30-second, let's just do it this way and move on. What I'm focused on in a foreign policy in the Middle East, my foreign policy, is that I want to promote peace, I want to protect lives, and I want on my watch. That's what I want to do. And the reason is I don't want the U.S. overly interfering in matters in the Middle East. They are beyond, like I said, they are historic, right? It is they can be traced back to from a spiritual nature. Many of these conflicts. So you don't go to that kind of a battle trying to just win with the physical wars of weapons. It's much deeper than that. There are ideological battles behind many of these conflicts. But what is interesting to me is all of the different alliances and how they float and vary frequently. So you talk with Iran and the challenges there with Saudi Arabia, and even the agreement that is put in place. Some question, but regardless, at least it was a temporary freeze on fighting, and that's not going to be a permanent hold. So yes, they're doing some proxy wars, and Yemen and Syria are still hotbeds for both of them to kind of fight without fighting. But I think ultimately what this is about is, well, many things, but business. There is the alliances with China and Russia, supporting Iran and their capabilities, both nuclear and others. And then you've got Saudi Arabia, who was focused more on other alliances outside of China and Russia. So, and then all of that, against all of those, you have Israel. And then, so my perspective is that I would not put Iran, I do not want to go back into the Iran agreement. And I know that the current administration, pledged that in this last election. I would not, and he has not been successful in doing so. And ironically, neither side wants it. Iran doesn't want it, and America doesn't actually want it. He ran on it. Just because it was something doesn't mean it. Sometimes nothing is better than something. And I do think that is probably where we are at the moment, because it does no good. And I'm not saying America always plays by the very thing it commits to by any stretch of the imagination. It's one of the reasons I'm running, because I think we're one of the most corrupt regimes on earth. We just do it better. And you understand what I'm saying by that. It's not as overt. It's not as in people's face. And then we act like we're the victims and everybody else is just committing these, horrible atrocities. But ultimately, the challenge with Iran and several other countries, the Uyghurs and so forth, in China, but is human rights and protecting people. And so, at what point can you be a legitimate regime when you are oppressing your people? And Iran, especially, you've got I know that media would use the term hardliners, but so you have the hardliners, and then you have those who have been exposed to the rest of the world and are a lot more open-minded about not their faith. And that doesn't change. I think they're very committed to their faith regardless, but they aren't as oppressive, even to their own people.
Right. No, thank you so for that fantastic overlay of events in the Middle East and how human rights plays into it, and how human rights is really a tough topic for U.S. presidents, because, as you said, here we are, a beacon of hope and democracy in the world, and often, we're better at kind of hiding our own, corruption and difficulties, and we have certainly better press, better TV coverage. We're able to spin it in a favorable way. But as a beacon of hope and democracy, we are often forced to deal with regimes in the Middle East that are oppressing their own people, like Iran, and human rights immediately becomes an issue. Even if it's not a campaign issue, you just can't talk about Iran for 2 seconds, oil and not run into a severe human rights dilemma.
Right. And the challenge for America is that it doesn't, how do you hold the regime accountable without contributing to more human rights issues, such as what damage does sanctions cause? Where's that threshold where it penalizes the bad behavior, but then it starts hurting the people that we want to help?
Right. Oh, that's a fantastic and insightful analysis of what sanctions unfortunately do. 2 things you mentioned, the Iran deal and sanctions. The Iranian diaspora is very much in favor of both in general, as you know. They want to hold the regime accountable, but governments throughout the world are having a difficult time reconciling that issue. The sanctions sometimes hurt the poor, innocent people that have no recourse, no ability to fight runaway inflation in Iran, no ability to circumvent the sanctions like the regime elements do. I always say sanctions usually hurt the regime in the way that instead of driving a Corvette, they have to drive a Ferrari. But they're not going to suffer. They're not going to say, oh, I'm going to lose my home, So it's a really tough thing. How do you hold them accountable? Sanctions is an inarticulate tool sometimes in American foreign policy. And something I've studied, I've spent a lot of time on, is if it was multilateral sanctions, where the whole world is China and Russia included, then you definitely will have a solid impact. But when we do unilateral sanctions, just the US, nobody else does it, even the Iranian regime has said, kind of to your point, that they are experts at circumventing sanctions. They're experts at corruption. I mean, they could teach the world lessons in it. So in this last minute, Rollan, what parting message do you have for our listeners, for our audience, about the path forward? You got about 45 seconds.
path forward, America needs God. That's why I'm running. The world is upside down, and right is wrong. Wrong is called right. And I want to do right by people, American citizens, and people of the world. I'm running on economy, national security, and family. We have great policies on all of those. I've already articulated them. I'm not waiting for consultants to tell us what the polls say they should be. I'm telling you how to make America and keep America the land of the free and the home of the brave. RollanRoberts.com is where we're at. And thank you for the time and being with you today. It's been great.
Thank you, Rollan, for that excellent synopsis and for being with us today. دوستان اگه میخواستین بیشتر از رولان رابرتس یاد بگیرین به وبسایت ایشون میتونید مراجعه کنین و با این وقتی که با ما گذاشتین سپاسگزارم. Thank you, Rollan.